Okay, so it is time to protect these new beds from birds. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here this morning. It is October 3rd, 2020. So we are here in our vineyard garden, and things are starting to heat up a little bit now that the weather's cooling down. So we have these 3 beds you see behind me planted out with a couple things to establish the soil in the beds. So we showed you that, and I'll link it here for you, where we set these beds up with soil and started actually building soil in these beds. So what you'll see if Lori slides in just a little bit is you'll see that we have some of our cover crops that are already starting to come up. And we temporarily have protected these new starts from birds by just draping this bird netting over the beds. Now, again, this was just temporary. Today what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be installing our permanent bird protection here in these 3 beds. This will be the first time that we've actually installed these here on this farm in these beds. However, we did actually have something very, very similar at the old property. In fact, I'll link that for you here, where we show you what these essentially are going to look like in the end. Now, those did a very good job of protecting the beds from birds, had no issues there. We did find that rabbits had a tendency to get up in and eventually chewed through the bird netting. So it's one of the reasons we built these beds a little bit taller. What we also found is the bird netting, the way we had it set up, it was bunched up at the ends. And while we were able to get in and do weeding and harvest without a problem, we had some issues as far as the bird netting being draped on the ground, bunching up. We had a couple of lizards get stuck in there, and unfortunately we lost a few lizards, which we don't want to do. What we're hoping to get to is something that's a little bit more permanent, and we're not going to have some of those issues that we faced at the other property. Also, a few things we found, parts and pieces, that are going to make this look a little bit better than that one did there. So let's talk a little bit about the tools that we're going to need for today. So now, one of the reasons we went with block is we knew that we had a lot of flexibility when it came to installing things that were going to allow us to have a stable structure above it. So what we're going to be utilizing are things that are going to last a long time. So everything that we have today, with the exception of the bird netting, is going to last for years and years because it's galvanized steel. So our base is going to be 3/4 inch EMT conduit. It's used for running electrical inside buildings and things like that. Next thing are going to be a couple of fittings that we found at Lowe's. In fact, we use them on the vineyard trellising that you see behind us here. And there's 2 different types we're going to need today. Now, these are by Steel Tech. It's STEELTEK. And the first thing we have on each of the corners is going to be this 3/4 inch elbow. So the way this elbow is designed, it goes 3 ways. It'll go straight down, you can see that there, and it'll go out 2 different ways. So each one of our corners will have one of these on there. For reference, the item number on here for Lowe's is 7377778. Next thing we're going to need is the fitting that you'll see us install in the middle of the beds for our crossbar to give it some stability. The stock number is 737820, and the way this one's designed is we'll be able to basically install it in the middle, have a post going across the top, and both of the posts continuing from side to side. Again, you'll see this in more detail, but we wanted to make sure we showed you exactly what we're going to be using in order to get this frame up and running. So now what we're going to do first is we're going to get some of this EMT conduit cut down. We're essentially cutting these 10-foot sticks in half to about 5 feet tall. That way we can get them set in each one of our quarters and towards the middle of the bed. So we have these cut down, they're about 5 feet or so. Now what we're going to do is get all of the corners placed. So you can see here in the tractor bucket, I have some ABC, which is a mixture of sand and crushed up rock, gravel, that kind of thing. That's going to help to cement these into place. What we're going to do is we're going to get these right into the corners. So we're going to get these placed, make sure we get them nice and level. Also make sure they're all about the same height. So you'll also see us measuring those. and we verified we're about the same height. As we go through and start putting in crossbars, we can tamp these in just a little bit if we need to. But again, doesn't have to be perfect. They're garden beds after all. Now what I'm gonna do is start working with these brackets. So these brackets use a 1/4 inch Allen wrench, and that's actually how you make your adjustments. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen this first one. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and just set it on here for now. I'm not gonna really tighten it because obviously we need to do all of our connections, but just to give you an idea, it doesn't fit absolutely perfect, which is okay. It makes it easier to do minor adjustments. And all you do is just use the Allen wrench once you have all your pieces and just cinch it into place, and then this won't go anywhere. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and get all of these placed, and then we'll start putting in all of our conduit that's gonna be all of our crossbars. You can see the frame looks pretty good. It's not completely level and perfect, but again, it's a garden bed. So now you have a few options as far as what you can do here. You can go with just straight bird netting. That's not an issue. We've done that in the past. But again, we want to make this a little bit more permanent and a little solid, especially on the ends. And we want to be able to possibly use the backs or the ends of these as a trellis. So instead of using bird netting there, we're going to use hardware cloth. So this is 4 feet tall hardware cloth. So what we're gonna do, we just took the measurements. We want it to be a little bit deep so we can tuck it down into the bricks here to make sure nothing can get up and inside, especially gophers, which is what we're most concerned about with this. But we're gonna go ahead and cut this to size and actually put hardware cloth on both of the ends. We basically have this end done. We're gonna take a break, go grab some breakfast, and then we'll come back to you on the next step. But one thing we learned pretty quickly, we should have actually come back and filled these bricks in with ABC. So we skipped a step that we're not gonna skip on the other end and going forward. We're gonna fill these in. We had in mind to basically bring this hardware cloth back and get it cut into these bricks. But instead of going through that, if we get ABC packed in here, we're not gonna have anything that's gonna be able to dig up from underneath and through that ABC in order to get into the beds themselves. So like I said, we're gonna go grab breakfast. We'll come back to you for the next step. Really liking this idea. I think it's gonna work great as a trellis for both what we have planted in the front and then of course what's planted on the inside. So last thing we have left is to get our bird netting up. So this was already cut to length. We may need to trim it just a little bit, but essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna drape this over. We're gonna put some zip ties, you'll see these here, some zip ties here. So we're gonna zip tie it down to about the foot level or so. And then what we're gonna do is weight down the bottom. And how we're gonna do that is we're gonna utilize some of our leftover EMT. So now we always keep any scraps from any of these projects. And what's nice is we're able to utilize all of the EMT that we have cut so far, and then we had some scrap in addition that we're adding to it. So now this part of weighting down the bird netting, you can probably use a lot of different things. At the old property, we actually used a 3/8 inch rebar. That's nice and heavy. We weren't fans because of course that rusts and these don't. The advantage to rebar is it's very heavy. So I don't know whether or not this is gonna work all that well, but we're gonna give it a shot at least for this project, and then we can always come back and make adjustments. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and get the bird netting draped over and go through this final process to get these set up. We are done. So now you get an idea of exactly what this is gonna look like. I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this works. Now, a couple things as far as the function. I really am not too sure about the EMT. We'll have to see when we get some heavy breezes whether or not those are heavy enough. We may need to switch to rebar, so maybe some 1/2 inch rebar. Obviously, whatever you want to use to weight this down, go for it. We'll probably adjust that a little bit. But to give you an idea of the function of this, all we need to do, right now birds can't get in. All we need to do to get inside ourselves is lift a few of these up, set them up here on top, and now I can sit here and easily get in and work as much as I need to. When I'm done, all I do, come back, and set those down. Like that, I don't have birds in here again. So I think overall this is gonna work. Again, if you need to make a few changes, that's just fine. But I think for now, we're ready with these beds. I don't think we're gonna have anything getting inside there, well, except for us farmers. So just wanna thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Instagram and Facebook, we post content there you won't see here on the YouTube channel. Our Amazon shop, will leave a link down in the description. That's a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. And the bird netting, by the way, is in that shop. One last thing, our Healthy Farm Living channel, if you haven't checked that out, that is our new channel that actually covers all the things we do inside and around the farmhouse in order to be as healthy as we possibly can be. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.